It's dry now, which is good. I've got Dad behind me somewhere. He's got a bit of a padding problem, which to you and me means getting a bit old. He's now in his 60th year, or 61st year, whatever way you look at it. But he's a game old man because he's got his bike on, got his jocks on. He's ready for a good old cycle. 46k I think we're doing today. And yeah, he's not too slow, is he?
Well, hello and welcome back to the second podcast from the South Island of New Zealand. I'm Mr. Smith.
I'm Rosie.
And that's my daughter. And we've been on the island now for nearly 10 days. What do you think of it so far?
Really nice, but very, very similar to Scotland.
How is it similar to Scotland?
Very green and wet.
And let's talk about some of the highlights. One of the things we've been doing is we've been walking on beaches a lot. And last week we talked about something that you saw on a beach.
Yeah, so we saw a shark on a beach, but it was washed up, it was dead. It was a bit gruesome.
It was terrible, really. But we've also seen other things. Remember when we were down the west coast, we were down by a place called Ship's Creek. We were walking along and suddenly you pointed out to sea, and what did we see?
We saw some dolphins jumping.
And when we were further down on the other side of the island, we were walking along and we went to see some really big marbles. Well, actually they're called the Maraki boulders, aren't they?
They were really cool. They were really, really big. So not like marbles at all, really. They were just really big and round.
And in all of our trips, we've been doing lots of stuff. Let me ask you, we were at a place called Queenstown, which is full of activities. What were the kind of things that we did while we were actually in Queenstown?
So while we were in Queenstown, we got in a gondola, which is like a cable car that takes you up the side of the mountain. It's super, super steep. And then when you get to the top, you can hire these buggies and sit in a buggy and ride down the mountain. Kind of like sledging, but without the snow. And then we went on a jet boat down the river, and it goes really, really, really fast and does really big spins. And it was pretty scary. Mr. Smith was really scared. He was holding on for dear life. This is true.
We also did a trip where we went out into the middle of the... felt like middle of the ocean.
Yeah. So we went to this Milford Sound, which is a bay, and it's meant to be really, really beautiful in the sun. However, when we went, it was torrential rain. It was still very beautiful, but the boat went under quite a few waterfalls, so we were very, very wet by the time we came back to shore.
But we enjoyed it a lot, as you'll see. But we also last time we walked up to see a volcano, but this time we walked up to see something very cold.
We walked up to see a glacier.
In fact, we saw two glaciers. One was the Franz Josef,
and the other one was a Fox glacier.
And there were very, very long walks. And what was the water like that came off the glaciers?
So cold, but we tasted it and it was really, really, really fresh, like better than Scottish water.
A few nights ago we did something really cool. We went to the world's steepest street. What was that like? Yeah,
so Baldwin Street in Dunedin is the world's steepest street. So it's not that long, but if you can imagine walking up it, you feel like you might as well get on your hands and knees. It's just so steep. And Mr. Smith ran up part of it and he was pretty knackered by the time he reached the top. But we saw loads of cars revving their engines trying to get to the top of it, and some failing miserably. It was quite funny.
And what else did we see in Dunedin?
We saw a big statue of Robert Burns, because Dunedin is sort of like a Scottish town, but in New Zealand, because a lot of Scottish people came to New Zealand in the 1800s and early 1900s. They came and started a life here. So Dunedin means Edinburgh in Gaelic, and it's all set out a bit like Edinburgh. So there's a big statue of Robert Burns right in the centre on Princess Street.
But we also did some other crazy things, which we'll be seeing now, which is we got a couple of bikes and we got taken to the top of a very big hill on an abandoned railway track, and then
we cycled all the way back. So it was about, I don't know how many miles.
It was about 45 kilometres.
But they won't know that.
Somebody really bright is going to do a calculation and say 45 kilometres, that's about 30 miles, isn't it? Or something like that.
I don't know. Yeah, it's a few miles anyway. But when we started doing it, it was raining really, really heavily. And then as we started getting closer to our destination, it started getting a wee bit brighter, so it was all right. But man, it was wet and cold. But it was still fun, very beautiful.
How have you enjoyed living in the camper van?
Yeah, it's been really good.
Although we live in the camper van, you also were sitting here as we're recording it. What are you doing?
I'm colouring in. I've got a colouring in book, and I have pens I use to draw and colour in. It's really good fun. It's very relaxing.
And what are your final thoughts about New Zealand as we pack up and ready to go home? Well, I'm going back to Scotland, and you're going back to Scotland, but you're going back via Australia.
Yeah, it'll be sad to leave New Zealand, but at the same time, I think we've seen everything that we wanted to see. I'd recommend it though.
What would you say to anybody who was going to think about coming to New Zealand?
Bring a really warm jacket.
Okay, and on that bombshell, we'll leave you. Well, I hope you've enjoyed these 2 podcasts, and also the supplementary one that we put out, a small video of us driving like crazy around the island. It wasn't real. We had to do some magic with the filming to do that. Anyway, and thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye now.